Hello and welcome to the channel, and I'm here for an album review for you guys. Now this is a review that I am kind of late to. I do realize that because this is an album that came out last June, but this is one of those albums that I wanted to continue to give more listens before I actually gave it a review, and this was one of my most anticipated albums of the year. And the album that I'll be reviewing is Aggression Continuum by Fear Factory. Fear Factory's newest album, and again, this was one of my most anticipated albums of the year, and I will gladly say that after giving it a listen, it is by far my favorite album of 2021, which I know might be a rather unpopular opinion, but that's okay. And you know, Fear Factory is a band that I'm actually kind of new to. I actually became a fan of the band earlier this year. Actually, they might have been like one of the first couple of bands that I gotten into this year, if not the first. But yeah, I just know I got into them earlier this year, so yeah, definitely a very great band that I think deserves a lot more recognition from metalheads and some metal fans in general, of course, because they are a pretty underrated band, I think. So for this album, I'm not going to be going over all the songs. I'm just going to be talking about what I think are the highlights and just tell you why I like these songs and tell you basically why I like the album as a whole. Now, this was unfortunately the last album with Burton on vocals. Now, we don't know what the future is going to hold for Fear Factory after this. I'm not sure if they'll get a new vocalist, and if they do, we don't know when, they'll release another album. Will it be another 6 or so years, like the difference between Genexus and Aggression Continuum? I'm not sure. That is a good question, but for this album, Aggression Continuum, I think it's a very strong album, so let's go ahead and talk about some of these tracks. The opening track, Recode, is probably a favorite of mine on the album. It's got its energy to it, it's pretty aggressive, and this song basically lets you know what you're in for this album, and this song basically just does everything right, I think. It's got a good mix of the heaviness and melody, and I think it's a really great track. And then we got Disruptor, which was one of the singles, of course. I do remember doing a review for this song. It is just kind of standard Fear Factory, I think, but it's not bad, though. I still think it's a very strong track, and it does get better with more listens, I think. Not much to say about it, but I do think it's a good song. And then another song I want to talk about is the title track, Aggression Continuum, which is one of the heavier songs on the album, but it's not just, like a heavy song that's real in your face and very hard-hitting or whatever, but it does have its melody as well, especially when you get to Burton's clean vocals. And I tell you, this song, it definitely is a heavy one, so yeah, I'd say it's probably one of the heaviest tracks on the album. Purity is probably a favorite of mine on the album, as of now anyways. I just really love the mix of melody and heaviness in this track. Everything from the screaming vocals to the clean vocals. I mean, Burton does sound really good in this song, I think. Now, another song I want to talk about is actually the closing track, End of Line. Pretty good album closer, I think. I think this is another song where Burton sounds good as far as his clean vocals go, and I think it's a decent way to close the album, I think. I think it does a good job at everything that it does. Now, this album, I know it wasn't a very descriptive review, I guess, for this album, but the album is kind of just another Fear Factory album. That is something that I will say about it, so that's why, it's kind of hard to say what makes these songs stand out from the other Fear Factory albums and, what makes this album really stand out. But obviously, some albums are better than others, and I would say that this is definitely a very strong album. So yeah, even though it is kind of just standard Fear Factory, I still think it's a very good album. So yeah, most of the tracks I'll probably continue to go to, such as Recode and Purity, just to name a few. There are some songs on this album that I can see lacking replay value, like Collapse, for example. That's not a bad song, but I think it is one of my least favorites on the album. But all in all, I think it's a very good album. I mean, if if I were to give it a score, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, I do think it's a great album. It's not Fear Factory's best album, but I do think it's a very strong album. It's not their best, but I wouldn't say it's their worst either. Not even close to one of their worst. But yeah, that's my review for Aggression Continuum by Fear Factory. Let me know what you guys think of this album. Do you like this album? Do you not like this album? Have you not heard this album yet? And if you're looking to check out one of the best metal albums of 2021, give this album a listen. Because I know that, well, for me anyway, 2021 has not been the greatest musically, so this is definitely one of the saving graces for this year musically, I think. It's not a mind-blowing album or anything, but I do think it's a very strong album for sure. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.